So I can't believe it. We're actually in the situation now where it's reported that a Max Verstappen move to Mercedes could be on the cards for 2025. Now it does seem a little bonkers, I know, but after all the politics and drama and pot stirring we saw even before the season started, this has now opened up possibilities that were not there before. And despite having what we thought was an ironclad contract with Red Bull until 2028, there are massive clauses which have come to light, which means that Max could now be back on the market. Now, despite the insanity of it all, it's only when you break things down bit by bit that it does seem like a move which might actually work. But the question here is why Mercedes, and also why this could also be a match made in heaven. Now, first things first, if this did really happen and Max did move to Mercedes, it would be a move for the ages, and it would be something that we would talk about in F1 for years to come. First we had the Hamilton-Ferrari move, and now we've got talk of a Verstappen move to Mercedes. You know, we really have been spoiled so far. So potentially two of the biggest driver moves the sport has ever seen, and this is then going to open up the 2025 World Championship. Sounds like a pretty good deal to me. And also the sheer redundancy of F1 merch that people have bought over the years next year. All the Max fans in Mercedes gear, all the Hamilton fans in Ferrari gear for 2025, you know, Del Boy would be all over this. So let's just rewind quickly and do a very quick recap on how this whole thing came about. There's the Christian Horner text controversy, and the details of that then been sent out to the universe. And then you have the infighting at Red Bull ever since Matishud's passed away, and the tussle over what direction Red Bull is going in and what it's ultimately going to become. And then to top it off, you've got Jos Verstappen in the mix and making a bit of a power play. He's getting very involved in places that he probably shouldn't, and he's been very public about what he thinks of this whole Red Bull controversy so far, and also the effect that this is going to have on his son Max's career. Now, Jos being involved is a bit strange. He's not a Red Bull employee, nor is he Max's manager. So why he's allowed to be so present and influential at Red Bull Racing is a bit odd. Him and Max do seem to be tied at the hip, but if a Mercedes move does happen, it may not be this way for much longer. But putting Max and Jos aside for a second, ultimately to you and me, Red Bull's leadership does not seem to be in a very good place at the moment. There's mounting pressure on Christian Horner to move aside. Helmut Marko has made his feelings known about a potential Red Bull collapse, and also what his thoughts are about a potential Max move away from the team. He's been very quiet so far on this, but Red Bull's arguably most important and valuable asset, Adrian Newey, famously doesn't like drama and inter-team fighting and politics. And this is what caused him to leave Williams, then McLaren, and then ultimately to sign for Red Bull, who were the party team, the cool team, the clean slate for Adrian Newey to do what he does best. And with all this going on in the background now at Red Bull, it's going to be interesting to see if he hangs around for much longer. And even future partner Ford is reevaluating its F1 plans and future tie-up with Red Bull due to their lack of transparency with the whole Christian Horner thing. So you see all this noise and controversy and blah 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 is very distracting, and for all his dominance and weight that he carries in the sport, Max hates anything in Formula 1 that isn't just straight up racing. Now, for us mere mortals on the outside, the noise coming out of Red Bull and all the uncertainty and controversy, it's pretty deafening. So we can all assume there's some serious activity going on within the team, and Jos in particular thinks that this isn't the place for Max to be. Now, whilst Max can be quite assertive and loud on the track, he certainly doesn't have the bombasticness and attention-seeking traits that other drivers have within the sport. Off the track, he kind of prefers the quiet life and not really to give too much of himself away. Now, you could argue that this is because he's been winning since day one, so his brand looks after itself, and there's no need for him really to put himself out there. And the thing is, other drivers don't have this. They have to be on social media, have to be on Drive to Survive, and have to be at the disposal of sponsors and the teams. And it's because of this that Max and his people, let's call them Team Verstappen, are looking at other opportunities within the sport that will give him just that. The chance to get on with it and just race, with none of the other distractions. But the question here is why Mercedes, and also why this could also be a match made in heaven. Now, Mercedes will lose one of their blockbuster assets at the end of the year, and a realistic replacement in the form of Kimi Antonelli has emerged as a likely replacement to partner George Russell moving forward. Now, this is a great chance to give a rookie a debut in Formula 1, but it seems commercially Mercedes need to replace a world champion with a world champion. So then this brings Alonso and maybe even Vettel into the mix. Both are big names, but also big risks, and do come with a fair amount of baggage. But the downfall is neither are really an investment for the future. Alonso or Vettel really would be a stopgap at best. However, Verstappen at Mercedes would be the ultimate investment for the future and a statement that the team still means business. Now, the thing is, Max has pretty much been in one team for his whole career. Okay, you had Toro Rosso and then Red Bull, but ultimately it's the same organisation. He's still working with and being influenced by the same people. He made his F1 debut at 17, but now at 26, going on 27, a move to another team now would be quite a healthy thing for him to do right now. Everyone moves at some stage. All the greats have moved from team to team. So given everything that's going on with Red Bull right now, if the timing is right and the opportunity presents itself, why not take it? If Max moved to Mercedes for 2025, he would find a team that is finally coming to terms with itself and the fact that they are not dominant anymore and they can't rely on the same old tricks. He would find a Mercedes at the beginning of a new journey with an eagerness to start a new chapter in their history. This would serve as the cutoff point from their decline and the beginning of their climb back to the top. And also in a funny way, a Verstappen move to Mercedes might finally allow them, and most of all Toto Wolff, to put Abu Dhabi 2021 to bed once and for all. Let me know in the comments about this, but I have a feeling that Toto may have more in common with Max in his outlook and approach to Formula One than he does with Lewis. You know, Toto knows how to play the game and can be wily when it's needed. But I sense that there's a straightforwardness and a kind of cut out the bullshit mentality that would click so well with Max and much more than it would with Lewis. Max just wants to race, put himself out there with no distractions. Whereas with Lewis, credit to him, you have a celebrity. And when he drives for you, there's a whole load of other stuff going on that you have to cater for as well. So whilst Max and Toto seemed like a completely incompatible and impossible combination just a few years ago, they might have more in common than you think. Toto's made some noise and created some controversy in the past, but I think now for the team, especially as they are going through a rebuilding period, they will want to keep their heads down and try not to attract any negative attention. But should they announce Verstappen as a driver for 2025, this will be a statement that Mercedes are back in business and they will have their sights set on both championships in 2025. And what will be a big motivator for Max is that Mercedes have actually started this season quite positively. They're much happier with the W15 than they were with the W14 and 13. And it might serve as a good footing for what car they're creating in 2025. Basically, Mercedes are in much better shape this year than they have been the last 2 years. And also, what a motivator for some of the Mercedes staff to have someone like Verstappen walk through the door. By now, there must be a fair number of staff at Mercedes who were not there when Mercedes were mopping up championships and wins. So after hearing all the stories of Hamilton this and Rosberg that, all these new people can build their own stories around Verstappen at Mercedes. But also a big factor is who would partner Max. Verstappen has had the luxury of basically running in a one-car team at Red Bull for the last few seasons, and I doubt that Mercedes will give him that same luxury. So who would they put in the other seats? Well, this could be a perfect opportunity for Mercedes to introduce Antonelli, perhaps for 2026. And in the meantime, let George battle it out with Max, which I think is what all of us want to see. And I sense that combo of George and Max is going to generate sparks, but that is a hurdle that Max is just going to have to get over because things will be different outside Red Bull. The total prioritizing of one driver isn't how it's done anymore. Well, not since Valtteri Bottas anyway. By signing for Mercedes, he'll be joining a team that have no memories of him being on board as a teenager. They will find a 27-year-old man arriving at Brackley and looking to crack on. And you know how we see Jos Verstappen deeply involved with everything that appears to be going on at Red Bull? It will be very interesting to see if this kind of arrangement is going to be allowed to continue should Max sign at Mercedes. Now the thing is, the relationship between Max and Jos does appear to be a very complicated one. And we don't really know what's going on. For Max, it could be holding him back or it could be keeping him on the tracks. We don't know. But because he was 17 at his F1 debut, of course Jos had to be there. He was basically a child. But his presence at Red Bull now may just be a continuation of that, and no one at any point really said he had to stop. And also, not many companies have a policy of bring your parents to work, and I have a feeling that Toto would put a stop to this immediately. Ultimately, all the greats in F1 have moved around from team to team for one reason or another, and sometimes to a team that's completely illogical. And it seems that is how you truly become a great within the sport, and it's winning in different teams. Whether you're a Schumacher, Hamilton, Prost, Lauda, Senna, they all moved to different environments and showed us that they could still win. They could still do the business. And in a very similar fashion, this is the opportunity that Max is presented with now. So sure, he could stay at Red Bull for life, and if all the controversy settles down and everything returns to normal, he could win loads more races and championships for the team. But then the question of could he have done it at another team will remain forever. And in a similar way, I sense that this was partly a reason why Hamilton moved over to Ferrari, to show that he could do the business, win races, win championships in a car that isn't a Mercedes or even a McLaren. I have a feeling as well that Formula One and the FIA will do everything in its power to make this move happen. For all the people out there who claim that Formula One is boring and they're switching off and they know what the result is going to be, this is the quickest and easiest way to bring people back to the sport and create a hunger for the 2025 World Championship. It's much easier anyway than a regulation change, which also has no guarantees to work from what we've seen in previous years. So if this move does actually go ahead, I think the winners from this are going to be Max, Mercedes, and Formula One on the whole. In terms of it being a spectator sport, I think a Verstappen move can re-energize and create an interest. It would be such an exciting move to happen. It would be absolutely amazing to see. The losers from a Verstappen to Mercedes move would be Red Bull. They've lost their key driver. Antonelli, because it may have delayed his Formula One debut, and also Formula One contracts, which from what we've seen from Hamilton and now potentially Verstappen, they basically don't mean anything, as they're loaded with exit clauses, buyout clauses, and all sorts of things which render them meaningless. So the next time I hear a team say they've announced a driver for 4 years or 3 years, I'm going to be a bit like, yeah, I'm sure you have. Anyway, do let me know in the comments below, do you think this move would work, or will it even happen at all? Give that subscribe button below a click. I'm Paul, and I'll see you later.